Hello and welcome back to the sideboard here in beautiful San Diego, California. I am Ruben Bressler and I'm joined by Andrej Selivra.
Correct.
And Marc Lalague. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that wrong on the Newsening when you won the Grand Prix.
Nope, you got it right now though.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah, all right. And you have a deck that's got a lot of the same cards as the deck that you won Grand Prix Anaheim with.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about where this red-green aggro deck came from.
Well, it's almost exactly like my GP Anaheim deck. We played in block. We started building it for the Invitational in LA, and the matchups that we expected there were not particularly good. The format's made some changes, and now most of the matchups left are like our good matchups, so it's time to bust it out. We got a couple new updates from M13. Some Ravnica cards in here, but mostly Innistrad block. It's just mostly the same core, the same deck.
Now, the one that's really going to draw most people's eye is Flint Hoof Boar.
Yep.
Yeah,
which is
that's
combination Watch Wolf, Boggart Ram Gang.
Sure.
That hasn't really gotten much play yet, but that'll change when Stomping Ground comes out, absolutely. But you guys are jumping the gun a little bit. So tell me a little bit about Flint Hoof Boar.
Well, Flint Hoof Boar, here's the thing about Flint Hoof Boar is that, like, a lot of people, I think, are hesitant to play a card like Flint Hoof Boar without Stomping Ground because they know Stomping Ground is coming. But that's the thing, you can't, like, really restrict yourself to those kind of, like, deck building ideas when you're, like, trying. I mean, because the guy is an awesome role player. He comes down on 2 mana a lot of time. You know, I'd say about 60% of the time he's like a 3/3, maybe 50% of the time he's a 3/3 on turn 2. Even if he's a 2/2 on turn 3, he's almost always a 3/3 by turn 4. You know, so he kind of like grows a little bit as he goes along. The fact that he's also awesome off the top in the late game is huge. You know, I mean, like that's one of the like if you notice, like the deck has a ton of haste. For instance, there's like the Flint Hoof Boars that gain haste, Sherry guys that gain haste, Hell Riders that have haste. So the deck has a really good ability to like. It has a lot of reach. Has a lot of ways to like kill.
There's another creature in the deck that has sort of haste, and that's Wolfer's Silverheart.
Yeah.
And the card deals 4 damage the turn it comes into play. A card that hasn't really gotten love in Standard, but as we saw in your feature match, a good way to win the Thragtusk battle is to just be so much bigger than your opponent's Thragtusks. So tell me a little bit about Wolfer's Silverheart.
I mean, Silverheart's just not even a real card. It's unfair. If you're playing against
Really
a deck that doesn't have a ton of instant speed spot removal, it's almost guaranteed to just deal them a ton of damage. I mean, in mid-range matchups, like the Naya matchups we expected a lot of, they have Selesnya Charm or Bust, or else they basically just lose the game. And it's insane against control decks like Bant, because it gives you a way to get a ton of power on the board without committing too much to the board at any one time, and it limits your exposure to Wrath of God. And yeah, it combos a tree in the sideboard against aggro decks to gain you infinite life. It's just insanely powerful creature.
Yeah, also deceptively good against mono red. You might think that like, oh, it costs 5 mana, it's too expensive, it doesn't gain you life. But the fact is that when that thing comes down, if you have even another 2/2 in play, all of a sudden they can no longer attack you. They're on literal burn or bust.
There have been recent talks about how Smiter might be better than Centaur Healer against those fast aggro decks, even though Centaur Healer gains you the life. You just want the 4/4.
Exactly, yeah. Getting out of reach of their removal spells and preventing them from being able to attack. I mean, this guy's essentially moat against mono red, which is like huge, you know, and mono red's starting to creep up in the format because of zombies, which, I mean, that deck's definitely respectable, and as you can see, like, a lot of the cards in here are kind of tailored to, you know, make that matchup favorable.
Now, you mentioned mono red, you mentioned zombies, and you too are on the 4 Hell Rider plan.
Yeah, we're playing the exact same 75. I'm 3-0 right now. I think Marc's like 2-1. And yeah, I mean, there's a couple other matchups, you know, that are maybe not so favorable, but for the format's kind of shifted. It's overreacted to zombies, so people are playing a lot of these kind of like mid-rangey decks, and this deck was bad against zombies once they started playing the dragon,
Thundermaw Hellkite.
Thundermaw Hellkite and Hell Riders. That matchup became much worse, so I scrapped this for the Invitational. Ended up playing a different deck, but now that the format's readjusted, I think this is a really good place to be, especially Wolfer's Silverheart. That guy, like, I mean, it just boggles my mind that card's a $3 card right now. Like, this card's gonna settle in at $8 easily. Like, yeah, I mean, that's my stock tip for you. Buy them up while you can.
Excellent news. And now, you were telling me earlier that this deck sort of shifts gears, becomes a completely different deck after sideboard in some matchups. Explain that to me.
I mean, the sideboard's absolutely incredible. I mean, Blasphemous Act is a big part of it. Allows you to play a control deck, almost like a Bant deck against some of the mid-range mirrors. Staff of Nin is the other piece of that equation. Most of these mid-range decks cannot beat the combination of those cards. Plus, Byzia Mortars gives you an essential 7 Wraths. So you're insane against any deck that's not trying to kill you extremely fast or trying to kill you with Geist Saint Draft. We have cards for the the super aggro decks. Obviously, Huntmaster and Tree are good. Devil's Play, Wolfer's Silverheart give us a little bit more work when we need some bigger cards. The Vines is excellent against any player playing Angels, so Restoration Angels kind of tough card to deal with, especially at instant speed, so it's good to have an
And
answer
it also
to it.
lets you have an out to a Rune Chancer's Pike or
Exactly.
a random other staff of
Yeah,
men,
Random
something
Pike
like
is
that.
also definitely a good target, and the 2 Ground Seals are a concession to Reanimator. We thought it'd be a good choice for today, so even though we haven't played it yet, they're a good way to stop the Unburial Rights action. It doesn't stop everything they can do, but it also doesn't take a card from your draw, so it's a pretty good card, we think.
Sure, and it's also, just like Abundant Growth, it's a card that cycles.
Right.
Yeah.
So even when it's not amazing, it still gives you value in addition to the ability that it has.
Yeah.
Right.
In particular, actually, in the sideboard, you'll see that the Staff of Nins are actually like phenomenal. That's been the card I think that has most overperformed in this entire 75 since I've been playing the deck. That's one card that I think is going to start catching on in other decks as well. I think if there's like a good green, white, black deck or a good Jund deck, those decks are going to need to start developing some kind of card advantage to keep up with a lot of other decks. And I think that's a good way to go. Is with Staff of Nin, Blasphemous Act. Like both those cards are like, I mean, they're just so good at doing what they do. You know, just completely changing gears in your deck, making your deck be able to play control.
Yep.
That I highly recommend everybody like try and look at that as at least an option out of the board.
Staffanin's like a planeswalker you can't attack.
Exactly.
So that's a real good one. And
Yeah.
if this deck is good now, red-green, if it's already good, you just wait a couple weeks.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Get some more tools.
Yeah,
Some
at
good
very
ones are
least,
gonna come
Stomping
out.
Ground's going to make the mana better. It's going to make Flint Hoof Boar better. There's already like the Domri Raid. Looks like
Rod,
that's
yeah.
like, you know, I mean, that thing comes down on turn 3. The deck has a ton of creatures, so it doesn't mind having like that kind of additional card advantage. I think that's definitely another direction the deck could go.
Excellent. Well, good luck, guys. You guys are combined 5-1 right now.
Yep.
We love the deck. We got a great reaction from it on Twitter. We want to see more of it. So good luck, guys.
Cool, definitely.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so
Ruben.
much for joining me.
Thank you.